There is no Antimemetics division. Part 3. The previous part of this series ended with quite a bang, not from a nuke, but from a massive antimemetic bomb that wiped out an entire site from conventional perception. It was set off by the head of the Antimemetics division, Marion Wheeler, after finding out about the existence of SCP-3125 and the danger it presents to all of human life. We were left on a massive cliffhanger as to what happened to both Marion and the world at large, but it might be a bit before the smoke clears. Let's take a look. Before we move on to more of the tale, we're given another SCP to read, 2256. SCP-2256 is a species of gigafauna which was endemic to the South Pacific Ocean around the islands of Polynesia, and was one of the very few recorded species known to have developed rudimentary perceptual/antimemetic camouflage, rendering them nearly impossible for other sentient beings to perceive or remember. This adaptation is theorized to have arisen in order to elude predators. It was the largest species to have lived on Earth, and resembled spindly, vertically elongated giraffes or brachiosauruses, with adults of the species growing to over 1,000 meters in height. They weighed no more than 4 tons, with most of their mass being camouflaged by a very similar adaptation. With their broad, dish-shaped feet, they were able to walk directly on the surface of the ocean without sinking. They navigated the ocean alone or in groups of 2 to as many as 2,000 individuals. They were reluctant to approach land, especially inhabited islands, usually staying more than 30 kilometers offshore. Because of their height, they were visible on the horizon at this distance. Polynesian natives of the island of Maikiti used a substance called tucoca for recreational and religious purposes. As well as being a moderate psychedelic, this drug had mnestic properties, suppressing antimemetic effects and making entities camouflaged in this way easier to see and remember. Thus, the Maiketians were, for hundreds of years, the only people able to see 2256. In their mythology, the creatures were wandering spirits whom the gods had charged with maintaining the horizon to ensure that the sky and the water never mixed. They were characterized as well-meaning and friendly, but unintelligent and often deficient in their duties, resulting in storms and typhoons. They were called Polo Ongakau, the ones who walk very slowly. In 1991, an internal biochemistry study revealed that tucoca bore a strong chemical resemblance to the Foundation's own Class W mnestic. A Foundation anthropologist was assigned to follow up on the Maiketian legend, and became the first outsider to observe 2256. An observation post was quickly established on the island to study the creatures, with routine containment analysis determining that they were safe and required no special containment procedures, or even particular efforts towards secrecy. They did, however, prove immediately to be impossible to capture photographically. Photographic negatives of the species faded into transparency over the course of a few minutes. Similar decay also affected videotape, audio tape, celluloid film, digital and electronic scans, etc. The observation team soon returned most of their equipment to inventory and proceeded using pencils and paper. At the time, it was believed that such recordings would be effectively permanent. The creature's population declined slightly in 1992 and 1993, then dropped sharply from 1994 onwards. A combination of contributing factors were observed: illness, infertility, and an increased rate of stillbirths. In 2002, a field generator was developed which could penetrate and neutralize their antimemetic camouflage, allowing for conventional photography. The first and only close-up photograph of one of the creatures instantly killed it. It was concluded that direct observation of 2256 is injurious to them. This adaptation is believed to have arisen as a means of detecting predators, just as their antimemetic camouflage protected them from those same predators. Use of the field generator was immediately curtailed. It was subsequently hypothesized that the Foundation's ongoing passive observation of the species was intense enough to have harmful effects on them, and that was what was driving the species to extinction. Opinions differed sharply on the veracity of this hypothesis, over whether it should be tested, and over what could be done if it proved to be true. Several extreme options were proposed, including completely exterminating the species in order to preserve the data, and completely expunging the data to preserve them. No firm conclusions were made. In 2003, observation of the species was scaled back significantly, and the Foundation shifted focus from gathering data to analyzing existing data. However, the population continued to decline, and the last individual died near Tokelau on October 30th, 2006. In 2010, it was discovered that the antimemetic camouflage decay was spreading through paper records of the species. Now, more than 60% of paper documents are decaying, even with a strong nestic dose. The effect is even spreading into the SCP entry itself, despite shielding and redundancy in the system. Since the species is extinct, no new data about it can be generated, and it's estimated that full contamination will occur within 3 to 8 years. With that, we can continue our story. Chapter 6. SCP-3125. Yes, it's another SCP file, but this one we're a bit more familiar with now. I'll skip over what we know, that 3125 is a massive meme complex originating outside of our reality and now partially intersecting with it, and that it attacks and kills anyone who becomes aware of it. It's noted that 3125 could be effectively neutralized using a machine proposed by the late Dr. Bartholomew Hughes, called an irreality amplifier. However, as well as requiring tremendous material resources, this machine could not be constructed without its builders understanding why it was being built, which would require an understanding of SCP-3125, which would prove fatal to the project. What we're really interested in is the article's addendums, the first of which states that data indicates the existence of a second containment unit at Site-41, which is also isolated from SCP-3125. This second unit, S041B30000, was built 210 meters below ground level, featuring identical broad-spectrum informational cladding, but has more than 1,000 times the volume of Cognitohazard Containment Unit 3125. Addendum 2 reads, and the rest, hopefully, is blindingly obvious. S041B30000 was originally constructed to house a long-term project to construct Hughes' irreality amplifier. While that's been going on, the rest of us have been fighting an unconscious war in order to buy time. We have been losing, but losing as slowly as humanly possible. The time we have bought is now up. It's an extremely bad sign that nobody inside S041B30000 has broken the seal yet, but there is no ground left for us to cede, and there are no more bodies to throw into SCP-3125's maw to slow it down. It is here, ready or not. I'm going to go to S041B30000 and use the machine. I think I can get the information out through the airlock. I think I can get to the vault alive. This was the plan. It's become garbled in the retelling because of variables, but I know that this was my plan, because I know myself. What else could it have been? Standard procedures that I have to tell you what to do next if this doesn't work. That's the Asynchronous Research Covenant. But I don't have a good picture of who you can even be, reading this and alive. In your scenario, there is no machine. Hughes is missing. I'm dead. The site is ruined. And how'd you even get in here? Can you be Foundation? Are you conscious? Is there a single word of this which you comprehend? You live in a world bathed with SCP-3125. That's the loss condition. I can't help someone who doesn't exist. Marion Wheeler, Chief of Antimemetics, November 30th, 2015. Addendum 3 reads, I found your body, and finding your body was a powerfully disorienting sensation for me, I don't mind admitting. I used to know a Marion. During the brief period in which I knew her, she wasn't one to admit defeat as easily as you. Still, that was a long time ago. Far be it from me to tell you your business, but I fear you missed a trick. From the evidence I can see, this was never the only Antimemetics Division site. There were others. I imagine they're now all effectively invisible to most passers-by, of course, just like this one. But I presume that they, just like this one, still physically exist. Your plan, I think, was in place for longer than you know. And since you weren't at liberty to retain its details, you put it into action more than once. There is another vault fitting the description. Truck-sized amnestic airlock and all. S-167-001-6183. Site 167 is a non-entity, of course, which is most likely why you missed it. It's likely ruined, and it's quite definitely a long goddamned way from here on foot. But still, I think it's better than half a chance. I could die on this boondoggle too, naturally, as the world has become something of a horror show of late. In any case, I trust that anybody following in my footsteps and reading these additional words will have the presence of mind to pursue the same basic strategy. Still existing, despite everything. Adam Wheeler, Interloper, May 4th, 2017. Chapter 7. Where have you been all my life? Who the hell infiltrates a senior Foundation official's home while they're home? Marion Wheeler lives deep in coniferous forest, a long drive from the nearest major city, and a long drive in the opposite direction from Site 41. It's late, last thing, and she's reading in bed when she hears the muffled, unmistakable click of her front door being unlocked. She looks up and stares blankly at the wall for a second while listening to soft footsteps moving into the hallway. She marks her place and reaches for her Foundation-issued phone. She has no permanent security staff at home. The division is understaffed, and trained operatives are in much more serious need on site, but the building and grounds have beefy electronic countermeasures. They, she discovers, have all been disabled, along with the sensors and cameras. She was not notified that this had happened. Whoever did it had a valid code. Who, though? The Foundation has enemies. True, the list of credible, motivated enemies is surprisingly short, and the list of groups stupid enough to try to kill or capture someone at her level is shorter. But it's far from empty, and it's not actually so hard a feat. Not too many people below 05 level are privileged to travel in motorcades. The real trick, the impossible trick, is to avoid unholy retaliation. But what if you really think you can? What if you've decided it's worth it? Marion triggers the silent alarm. She sets her phone back down on the nightstand and collects her gun. She rolls out of bed, tucks a few pillows in her place, moves silently to her bedroom door and stands beside it, listening and thinking. This door, her bedroom door, can't be opened silently. It creaks like hell, so if she goes through it, she'll have to be ready to draw attention. There's an attic, but access is out there on the landing, and again, can't be operated silently. There's no alternate route to ground level other than jumping from the window, and someone has to be covering it. Even if she landed in the bushes alive, she'd still have to break the perimeter with a sprained ankle. A better question than who is how many. She may already be straight up dead, simply due to numbers. If the attackers tread cautiously and try to flush her out, she figures she can home alone her way through perhaps 8 of them before running out of luck. If they rush the second floor and have armor, she might be overwhelmed by as few as 2, even with the staircase acting as a choke point. All of this, naturally, assumes that the attackers aren't anomalous. If they are, and they're not in the, say, 30% of anomalies which can be neutralized simply by shooting them in the center mass and head, she may be fundamentally helpless even after the response team shows up, which will be, at best, 10 minutes from now. A creaking. This damned house. Someone is coming up the stairs, making no effort to be quiet about it. A soft tread, though, as if they removed their shoes. Just one of them. That barely makes sense. With 5 seconds grace, Marion casts around the dark room for a second weapon. She knows there are knitting needles downstairs in the lounge, and knives, good ones, in the kitchen, but she can't get to them. It's too late. The door's opening. It seems like the man's trying to say something as he comes in, but he only gets as far as whoop, and it's done. He's flat on his face, cheek pressed into deep cream carpet, with Marion on his back pinning both his wrists with her knees. She sights urgently back down the stairs for a second. There's no one there. She prods him in his other cheek with the muzzle of the gun. "You speak, you die," she hisses. "You try to move, you die." She glances at the windows, checks the stairs again, listens intently. There's no sound. There's nothing to be seen. The man is 50 and lanky. He wears an expensive dark suit, tailored to his build. He has angular features, thick, graying hair, and rimless spectacles, now quite possibly bent out of shape by their sudden impact with the floor. He wears discreet platinum jewelry, a wristwatch, cufflinks, and a ring. The two of them halt like that, a tableau. He makes no attempt to move, although he does look askance at Marion, as best he can given his dislodged glasses. She asks him where the others are, but he replies that it's just him. She asks who he is, and he says nothing for a moment, but his expression slowly, subtly drops. He says that it really happened, didn't it? He always wondered. She asks him again who he is, and he replies that there's a monster which follows her around and eats her memories. SCP-4987. She drip feeds it with inconsequential trivia so it doesn't go after anything important. She watches game shows. The book she was reading just now on her nightstand is a trivia book. Marion says nothing to confirm or deny this, although it is true. At feeding time, the entity manifests like a bright gold-white spot in the corner of her eye. It's gone now. She's already put the rest of it together. It is all mind-bogglingly, insultingly obvious. With a well-suppressed but still detectable note of dismay, she asks him what his name is. Adam Wheeler, he replies. Obviously, she has the man detained. She instructs her people to interrogate him, lightly, and to run deep background research on every word he utters, while for her part, she stands far back from the investigation to avoid contamination. She resists the urge to interfere, particularly to visit Adam and personally demand answers. She goes to her office, curls up on the couch there and tries to catch some sleep, but doesn't succeed in any real sense. 7 hours later, a foundationer knocks on her office door, bringing an inch-thick block of printouts and a paralyzingly strong cup of coffee. She takes the drink first, accepting it as a kind of authentication step before letting the man in. She moves back to the couch and sits hunched over the drink for warmth, inhaling its fumes. The man settles heavily into a chair opposite. He is a misleadingly stocky, perpetually unshaven individual, somewhere just shy of 40, and inarguably the most dangerous person on the site. He is the division's physical fitness and combat instructor, and the leader of their solitary mobile task force. His name is Alex Gauss. He says that they figured he should be the one to present their results, even though he didn't research one line of it, 'cause they get along, according to them. Personally, he doesn't see it. Marion stays focused on the coffee and asks who he is. Gauss opens the first page of the report, more for show than anything, then closes it again. He says that the man is her husband. Every word checks out. There is limitless physical evidence, and half the division knows him socially, including him. Gauss credits her diligence and adherence to protocol, but the bottom line is that SCP-4987 got hungry. Marion nods. This assessment matches her own, pieced together overnight from gut reactions and analysis of the plain facts. Where the hell else did her name come from? She wasn't born Wheeler, but she had to get independent verification. She asks him if this has happened before, but he says no. She then asks if it could happen again, and he shrugs. He says that she would know better than anyone. She replies that she would, and she does, and she can tell him this. She has SCP-4987 trained to follow her at her heel. She feeds it according to a strict regimen. It eats only the memories she says it's okay to eat. A rapidly progressive, universally fatal memory parasite made chronic and then domesticated. And now it suddenly breaks training? That adds up? Gauss cautiously replies that if she says that it doesn't add up, then it doesn't add up. But speaking from field experience, anything can happen twice. Marion has waited long enough and takes a long pull from the coffee. She stares into the coiling steam, as if trying to see the future. She asks him again who the man is, as at this point, he knows him better than she does. She asks him what he's like, and if Gauss likes him. Gauss grimaces extravagantly, as this is the great-great-grandmother of all loaded questions. Marion looks him in the eye and orders him to tell her his personal impression of Adam Wheeler. Gauss replies that he's a nice enough guy. She questions this, and Gauss clicks his tongue. He admits that he doesn't like him all that much. They're civil, but he'll always be a little bit too smug and a little bit too clever. He just grates, but he wouldn't throw someone in a cell for that. Marion asks if she likes him. Gauss begins to speak, but stops and looks away. Over time, a soft smile develops on his face, one which Marion doesn't recall ever seen before, not in a working relationship going back years. Yeah, he says. He's the one. Full name: Adam Bellamy Wheeler. Born February 27, 1962, in Henge, Derbyshire, United Kingdom, to Rosemary Leah Wheeler, née Witz, and Jonathan Jack Philip Wheeler. No siblings. Early education: Henge Church of England Primary School, Matlock All Saints Secondary School. Demonstrated great musical acuity from an early age. By age 16, had begun to be recognized as one of the most gifted classical violinists of his generation. Attended the Royal College of... Marion skips 3 pages. After sustaining a minor injury while on tour, he encountered SCP-4051, which had infested a wing of the hospital where he received treatment. SCP-4051 was protected by an unusual form of antimemetic camouflage, to which Wheeler, like an estimated 1 in 145,000 individuals worldwide, was and remains immune. His attempt to alert authorities to the infestation's presence was intercepted by a Foundation listening station. Operative Marion A. Hutchinson, 100A19331, then a field agent based in... another page. Resistant to conventional memory erasure procedures. Hutchinson applied successfully for an exemption, arguing that even with his memories left intact, it would be impossible for Wheeler to share the details of SCP-4051. They subsequently became romantically involved. Marion sarcastically comments on the featureless gray sphere of a biographer and how hooked she is by it stating that they subsequently became romantically involved. The biography is contentless beyond this point. Adam Wheeler's life spent touring, playing, lecturing, and occasionally conducting, writing, and composing is documented in exhaustive, pointless detail. He withstands background checks and surveillance, and consistently demonstrates himself to represent zero risk of leak. He eventually receives the extremely low clearance level normally granted to long-term Foundation external partners of Foundationers. They get married. She takes his name, which she, reading, considers faintly unrealistic. Blah blah. There is nothing about his personality. Nothing about their relationship. No content. She remembers acquiring SCP-4051. There was no one there. She remembers nothing. Up until the end of the third round of questioning, Adam Wheeler assumes good faith. He figures the repetition is a due diligence tick, a corporate procedural requirement. It's only when they start over from "What's your name?" with a brand new interviewer for the fourth time that he finally gets it. They don't like him, and they don't care what he thinks his name is. They're trying to grind him down until he can't think, until he's just dust particles they can sift through for data. He reacts badly to this realization. He asks for his wife, and asks for his wife, and they ignore him, and they ignore him, and she persistently fails to appear until it becomes a cold form of torture. The questions keep coming, and nothing stops them. Not answering truthfully, not answering, not lying, not rambling off on tangents. They don't stop until he begins falling asleep in the middle of his own sentences. He wakes up in a standard humanoid containment unit, a stackable one-bedroom apartment with holographic fake windows, impregnable walls, and extensive, discrete modifications for the security and monitoring of anomalous entities. This one is on the first basement level, but he can't tell that. The bright, quote, light, unquote, pouring in through the main living area window is authentic enough to tan. He wakes up on the couch with a start, feeling creaky and dehydrated. He realizes that he slept in his suit, and that his suit is creased. He hates that sensation of not looking his best, or at least presentable. That's going to gnaw away at him until he can find, at minimum, a razor and a change of shirt. What woke him was the heavy metallic clack of the door unlocking. He looks up, rubbing his eyes. It's his wife. He leaps up and rushes over to meet her. She stops him a few paces short with a gesture and a cold smile. And that hurts. It hurts more than anything. So it really happened. SCP-4987 has bitten out the part of Marion Wheeler which cared about him. She wasn't absent because of some unrelated K-class outbreak. She just chose to be elsewhere. Indifferent. So he doesn't embrace her. He stands at a polite distance and asks how she's feeling and if she slept. She replies that she's fine, and he says that he can tell that she's had her coffee. He asks if she's eaten, and then says that he'll make her something. The unit has a rudimentary kitchen area. He goes through and starts exploring the cupboards. He remarks that there must be something edible around here, eggs and milk at least. He's ashamed to say he more or less fell asleep where he was standing when they put him in here, so he hasn't had a chance to scout. Or maybe they keep the place empty and the food arrives through a slot in the wall. Marion begins to call him Mr. Wheeler, but he shoots her a disappointed look, so she calls him Adam instead. She tells him to come and sit down, as he's right. There's nothing in any of those cupboards. He closes the cupboard and sits opposite her at the kitchen table. He suggests scrambled eggs on granary toast, with a lot of garlic in the eggs. That's what they both need right now, particularly her, because if he doesn't make something substantial for her, she ends up drinking those wretched wallpaper paste milkshakes 7 days a week, or she skips the meal entirely. Marion replies that they've been married for 17 years, but she doesn't remember him. Adam just says that that's fine, and he doubts that's going to be a serious problem. She's told him many times about her own people who've lost themselves in the work and had to bootstrap their own personalities a second time. She loves watching it. It's like watching butterflies emerge from chrysalids. The best of her people can turn that around in 10 weeks, so imagine how fast it's going to be for her. Marion replies, no, in a clinical, matter-of-fact tone. She's afraid it's not possible. She can't begin a new relationship right now, certainly not something as serious as a marriage. He has nominal clearance, so he knows what they do. She has responsibilities. She does not have time. Adam replies that this isn't new, it's pre-existing. But she says no. That relationship is ended now, and they are somewhere else. Adam stares at her for a long moment, thin-lipped and far from happy. He asks her what she remembers, and the question is so open-ended that Marion doesn't manage to respond verbally. She just spreads her hands slightly, the gesture saying, "What?" Adam says that she doesn't remember, and SCP-4987 also clearly ate the part of her which would care if she forgot him, and additionally the part of her which cares about brunch. What else has she forgotten would be a stupid question to ask, so instead he's asking her what's left. He wants her to tell him everything she can remember from 1995 to right now. It's still a farcical question at face value, and Marion's first instinct is to dismiss it as such, but she thinks again. She thinks, intending to genuinely try to answer the question, and she finds gaps. There's a dearth of specifics. It's like being asked to say something and immediately forgetting all words. She says that she remembers working, and driving home, and then sleep, and then driving back to work. Big, hostile buildings, drug regimens, containment procedures, endless piles of opaque numbers, personal fitness drills, running, calculating, never ever stopping calculating. She remembers, with unfair clarity, a large variety of extremely bad dreams. And other than that, nothing. A huge, deep, ragged-edged black pit. Adam asks if she remembers nothing good. When she comes home, on the night she makes it home, she's ready to fold up. It has never been an easy job, but these past few years have been the worst they've ever been, because she's coming to the conclusion of something gigantic. She has explained to him how it is that she can never tell him, really, what it is that she does, without the act of her telling him, killing him. And he couldn't stand that at first, and he still hates her job and thinks it's a monstrous farce, but he trusted her in that, and he stopped asking. But he can tell, from the rattle in her hands and the things she doesn't say, and the way she sleeps, that there's some kind of war going on back here, and she's losing people to it, and she's almost at the end, and she's going to win. So he scrambles her eggs, and he plays the violin for her, and between them they hack out about 3/10 of what they would consider normalcy. Not because she can't do this without him. She could take the whole universe by herself if she really had to, but she doesn't have to. It didn't happen instantly, but it happened pretty damn fast. They had music in common at first. Bach and Mendelssohn. They had tobacco in common and a mutual hatred of the X-Files. Then it was coffee and wine. And then, after some time, it became hiking and bird watching and Perseid meteors. They like Bruce Lee flicks. They watch Law and Order and Jeopardy, and they read stacks and stacks of books. No, in fairness, it's mainly him for the books. She doesn't have the long-term time to spare anymore. He pinches the bridge of his nose for a second. Any two people can find that much common ground. Just being in the same place for years doesn't count for anything. What do they have? They communicate, he says, better than anybody he's seen. They can be apart for 2 months while he's on tour or she's overseas and snap right back and pick up a conversation from the word they left off. They are connected. They're in the same headspace. She'll see it all. It'll happen again just as fast. She's just got to give it a chance. Marion is almost there. She sees the shape of what Adam is describing. It's distant and unclear, but if she concentrates, she might be able to bring it into focus. It worries her for nebulous reasons she can't completely articulate, but she can almost understand how there could be room for it. How it could lock into her life as it currently exists and still make sense. But Adam just said something crucial. He said a key word, which means the marriage counseling session is over, and this is now a situation. Marion can't ignore it. She forces herself to drop the other thread and seize this one. What war? She asks. And now Adam really doesn't know what's happening. Good God, he says. The war, Marion. He doesn't know how else to describe it. What war? She asks again. How many people? Adam doesn't know. There are names. Names she stops mentioning, and then she ignores him when he brings them up again. He assumes there are reasons. He doesn't know the specifics, but how could he know? Why doesn't she know? Marion races through the reasoning. The existence of a war computes. It confirms long-term existing suspicions. It could have been going on for years without her realizing it. It makes sense to her that she could be fighting it, winning even, and not know, managing her own memories or losing them in skirmishes. This certainly won't be the first time she's uncovered it. It makes sense that Adam, naturally gifted with the mental equivalent of a thick layer of blubber, could stand on the edge of the conflict and dimly be able to perceive it. And the division, so understaffed. People are disappearing around her. She begins to ask a question, but stops dead in the middle of the thought, as if the thought itself was stolen out of her. She begins to ask again about them getting back together, but this time hard instinct seizes her around the midsection and bodily hauls her back from thinking a thought which it knows would kill her. She's Wile E. Coyote. She's already run off the edge of a precipice into clear air, and thinking that thought would be like looking down. She feels SCP-4987 moving around her, abstractly bound to her, a winking speck of glitter in her eye. She says that something's wrong. Adam scratches at his own eye and asks if she sees that. She asks in turn, how can he see that? Adam replies that he has a mild immunity to antimemetic influence. He knows it's in his file, and he knows Marion has read the file, but apparently it needs to be said again. He can tell when something is fritzing with his memories. He can resist it, up to a point. So he was hoping to have a relaxed conversation over coffee and get around to this topic organically, but he's going to have to skip to the end. He has the impression that SCP-4987 is trying to kill him. No, Marion replies. That's not its behavior model. It doesn't sustain itself that way, by eating people. It eats memories, and it's never done this. Not to her, to him, or anybody. Not since the very early days. It's tame. It does exactly what she tells it to do. Even when she's waiting, and she's bored, and she lets it eat her short term, it sits and waits to be told to eat. Adam asks what it's doing to them then. He's getting nervy and won't let go of his eye. He stands up and backs away. He would like it if they could figure this out quickly, as they don't have a way to put SCP-4987 down. There's a sound in Marion's mind, but not in her ear, like a distant chorus of baying dogs. She stands too, and moves after Adam into the middle of the containment unit. She says that it's trying to protect him. He asks how wiping her memory of him protects him, but she can't explain. And she can't explain why she can't explain, as she doesn't fully know herself. She says something redacted, and that he can't be here. He can't be in her life. He has to leave, or he's going to die. Adam replies that he's not leaving her. That's why they got married, in the end. It was scintillatingly obvious to both of them, very early on, that they were forever, but he wanted to get it on the public record. He stood up in front of everybody he respects, and he swore to them that he would protect her, forever. SCP-4987 is agitated. Marion feels it flitting around the room, incoherent, trying to tell her what it needs. She says with sudden, actinic clarity that she must have made an identical promise. Adam doubles over, blinded in both eyes now. Closing his eyes does nothing. Covering his eyes does nothing. The gold-white light is strobing for him, moving into violet. He panics. He asks her to help him as he can't see. He reaches out unsteadily for Marion's hand. She lets him take it and pulls her close. The light doesn't fade. He clings to her for a few moments, and she holds on to him until he realizes that SCP-4987 is completely within her control, and this is all intentional. He asks her if she's going to do this. This is the Foundation mandate. This is what her definition of protect amounts to. She's got no idea what she's about to do to herself. She doesn't even know him. She replies that she thinks she knows. He tells her that she will feel this for the rest of her life. Every day she'll wake up with a sick, cold feeling in her stomach where there used to be a real life, and she'll wonder why. Marion tells him that she's going to win this war. She'll beat the universe, and then she will come and find out why. Adam holds on to her for another long moment. He can hear the bane now, too, and he can even barely perceive what it is, far off behind the hill, that SCP-4987 is frantic about. That distant dot, that fleeting secondhand glimpse of the shape of it, far off, is enough to terrify him. He has faith. He knows how fast Marion can put the jigsaw pieces back together, work against a universe which makes no sense to her, isolate the truth. He knows she can take the universe. But a sharp misgiving jabs him in the stomach, and he can't stop himself saying, "And what if you lose?" She kisses him. It's a stranger's kiss. There's nothing there Adam recognizes. He breaks off, unsettled. It's a whisper now. What if you lose? Marion exits the containment unit. She slams and deadlocks the door with a single movement. The heavy metallic crack makes the whole building shake. There are people outside. Gauss, Julie Still, and a few others, comparing notes. They look appalled. She tells them to fill in his backstory. He was never married. Relocate him to where she'll never find him, incinerate all the evidence, then report to her for surgical memory erasure. She'll do herself last. Gauss looks as if he has an objection. She stares him down. "My husband's dead," she says. Chapter 8. Fresh Hell. There's another conglomeration of severed fingers in the last room, coating the room's interior like the innards of an exploded elephant. Parts of the sprawl are feeling their way, like mold, into a medical cabinet, and the rest is splayed over a fetal shape on a medical gurney. The mass reacts sharply to the new light as Adam opens the door, rearing up and angling parts of itself toward him. Adam reels backwards and pulls the door just in time. There's a heavy, fleshy thump as the mass hits the door from the far side. The door holds. Adam trips on his own foot and slumps against the far wall. The shape on the gurney was a coiled-up human. Not a corpse, but a living human with one wide-open eye whose whole body was being slowly consumed and processed into more fingers. They were growing out of his throat. Adam didn't see this. He thinks he saw it, but he knows he couldn't have. And that's it. Adam casts around the corridor. Every other door he's tried is blocked or locked. The place is below ground, so no windows. No navigable ventilation. There are 2 more gunshots up at the far end of the corridor, ear-splitting in the enclosed space and echoing for many seconds. Marion rounds the corner at a dead run, gun in hand, and reaches him quickly. She asks pointlessly if he found a way out. She can read his expression. He's found nothing good. This place is infested, he says. Every room, all the stairwells. It's absurd. At the far end of the corridor, the main mass heaves itself around the corner. From this distance, it looks like an ambulatory 8-ton pile of moldy mashed potato and fat, wiggling maggots. There are toes in there, as well as fingers, and small teeth, and bits of bone. It has 20 bullet holes in it, and blood is flowing from all of them. But if it has vital organs, they must be elsewhere in the building, because none of the wounds have slowed it down or otherwise altered its slow, methodical homing behavior. It smells powerfully and creatively disgusting, like concentrated medical waste. It lurches forward in intermittent phases, coating the walls and floor with scarlet ooze as it moves. It'll be on them in about half a minute, squashing them against the end of the corridor and then pulling them into the mass to be remade. Adam quavers and says that he thinks they're done. He thanks Marion for trying. Marion, for her part, just stands there, gun lowered, watching the thing come. It moves slowly, like a steamroller. It fills the corridor almost to the ceiling. She has 2 bullets left, and she's considering where to spend them. Shooting the mass itself is like shooting pudding. She'd kill for a grenade. Even a fire axe would be something. She might not be able to stop the thing, but she could at least make herself known with a fire axe. She could make it feel some regret. Adam finds himself unable to stop talking and goes on, saying that there are worse fates, he guesses, than being digitized by that thing, but not all that many. Marion glances in his direction, apparently paying him direct attention for the first time since they met 60 crowded minutes ago. She says, "Riser cupboard," before pushing Adam aside. There's a white painted wall behind him. There's a lock on it and a long vertical seam. She spends a moment choosing the right part of the lock to shoot, and shoots it out. Behind the tall, wide panel which opens is a shallow, dusty, metal-edged space like an elevator shaft with no elevator, allowing filthy pipes and cables to pass vertically between floors. She looks up. There's just enough room to admit a person. She asks Adam if he can climb, but without waiting for a response, she sheds her suit jacket, sticks a flashlight between her teeth, and hauls herself up into the darkness. After a brief moment of scuffling, there's another gunshot. The other riser cupboard door. Adam finally manages to shout that no, he can't climb. The mass is almost on him. He's transfixed by its motion, It's all too familiar, grasping behavior. Marion calls down that she figured, and a hand descends, a human one with the conventional number of fingers. She says that it's clear up there and tells him to come on. Adam keeps his own jacket on and buttoned. It's the only part of the situation over which he still has firm control. He has to jump to catch hold of Marion's hand, and just as he jumps, the main mass lunges for him, crossing the last few meters in a rush and catching hold of him by 1 foot. He sees himself die. His sweating hand immediately starts to slip out of Marion's. She braces her other arm and hauls him up 15 or 30 centimeters with an angry grunt, then releases his hand for a split second and reaches down like a flash to take firmer hold of his wrist. She keeps pulling. The mass closes around Adam's foot like aggressive, proactive quicksand. He yelps and kicks at it with his other foot until it finally pries his shoe loose. The mass retreats for a second, taking a crucial moment to realize that its prize is not living flesh. But by that time, Marion has hauled Adam up another half-meter, and Adam has started pushing himself upwards off the pipework with his feet. The mass lunges again, but falls short and seems too unintelligent to climb after them. It sloshes around, probing its surroundings, perplexed by the shoe. Marion hauls him over the lip into the next corridor. He scrapes his ribs badly and arrives crawling, eyes watering. He doesn't die. He can still see himself dying. He stays on all fours for a significant amount of time, processing what just happened. He swears loudly. Marion is already standing, and apparently not even significantly exerted. She says that they need to get to the roof, as she might be able to get a signal out from there. Adam pants and asks if she's at the gym pretty often, training for fresh hell like this. She replies with a simple yeah, and Adam says that's great, because he plays the violin. It's not quite as physically demanding as careers go. When she said she was a county health inspector, that was an enormous lie, wasn't it? Marion ignores the question, out of habit, and waits impassively for the man to cool. Adam declares that this is asinine. This is brain damage. His skin crawls and grotesque visions flood through his brain. Eventually, he recovers his breath and gets to his feet. He stands lopsided, so he takes his other shoe off and throws it back down the riser for symmetry. Marion again says that they need to get to the roof. Adam blinks a long blink, then focuses on something around the corner, something on the wall which Marion can't see from where she's standing. He tells her to give him 1 second, and he goes to it. It's a red panel, and he pulls something down. He tells her that she was having no luck with the gun, so she should try this. It's a fire axe. He stepped on a rusty nail backstage after the show and came to the emergency room for a tetanus injection. While waiting, he slowly realized that more than half of the people waiting with him were clutching partially or entirely severed fingers. Bandsaw accidents, hands caught in car doors, hands trapped in door hinges, hands crushed in machinery, every one of them unrelated. There was an epidemic of physical injury, which should have been impossible, and when he tried to bring it up with the medical staff, they didn't seem to understand what he was saying. And then he saw one of the fingers escape. He followed it as it wriggled away down a long corridor to a far corner of the hospital, to an ajar door which nobody in the hospital seemed to be able to perceive except for him, and into a different building where there were no people at all, just hundreds and hundreds of wriggling, exploring, slowly reproducing and lengthening fingers. He slammed the door and tried and failed to get someone, anyone, staff or patient, to see what he was seeing. He found a payphone and dialed for emergency services and ordered off the menu, asking for emergency industrial-scale pest control or hazardous containment or psychic support or something. And there was a long pause, and he was connected to what was either a very measured, dispassionate human or an impressively articulate robot operator. It told him to wait by the phone. An associate would be with him shortly. Marion Hutchinson arrived in person, slightly less than 15 minutes later. He showed her the door. They went a few paces inside, Marion crouching and aiming some kind of flashlight/scanner at the fingerworms. Behind them, something reached out and gently pushed the door closed with a click. They turned and saw what it was, and ran. Marion hacks her way through the last of the flesh-clogged stairwell. They're almost at the roof. This part of the distributed infestation doesn't seem to be mobile, although it is freakishly grabby. Adam stands 3 paces back from her, partly to avoid the backswing, but mostly so he doesn't have to watch. It's butchery, and it's grisly, and Marion barely seems perturbed by it. She slices methodically until there are waterfalls of gore coming down the stairs and soaking her shoes and his socks, and she does it with the manner of someone trimming a hedgerow. Adam is shivering and starting to crash. If he doesn't stay still right in the middle of the stairwell, the remaining fingers tug at his hair and sleeves. In another few minutes, it may finally dawn on him that this is really happening. This is crazy. This is nuts, he says to himself over and over. Marion asks him suddenly what that word was he used back there. He doesn't really respond, so she tells him not to tune out. When the mass was coming down the hall, she asks if he said digitized. Adam seems to change gear and wake up, and says yes, but in the old sense of the word. Marion finishes his explanation. Digit meaning finger, so digitized meaning turned into fingers. She just got it. She's smiling, he can tell from the sound of her words. She says that that's great, as she continues to hack through the flesh. She then asks him what kind of violin music, and he asks what kind would she like. Yesterday's concert was Prokofiev's Violin Concerto No. 1, and a few other pieces, of course, but that was the main course for him. That was where he got his teeth in. Marion stops hacking and turns around. She actually looks him in the eye and says that that piece is a nightmare. Adam admits brightly that it's a challenge. Marion replies that she means that it's chaotic, it's unlistenable. Adam states that he can play anything she likes. Marion appears to spend a moment considering this possibility, before asking if he can play some Bach. Adam tells her to just get him to a violin. Marion thinks for a moment longer, before smiling, nodding, and going back to hacking. And they hit the roof, and Marion's radio finally works, and she calls everything in. She speaks in rapid keywords which Adam can't quite follow, although he can pick out his own name and hazmat and a repeated word which sounds to him like a brand of cassette tape. Memetics. It's very nearly dawn. This wing of the hospital is a few stories shorter than its main body, so rows of bright-lit wards look down over the roof, while the roof looks out over 2 sprawling car parks and then greenery and roads and a faint, dull red where the sun is due to come up. Marion quickly ascertains that there's no fire escape from here. The intended fire exit from the roof is the stairwell up which they just came, so they'll have to wait for a helicopter. Or, more likely and less romantically, a long ladder. Backup is coming, she concludes. They have to come in from the next city over, so it could be a few hours. They'll have decontamination gear, antibiotics, blankets, tedious debriefing forms, but most importantly, coffee. Adam makes an inarticulate sound, the sound of one who could use the coffee, and after that, a drink. He remarks that he has another concert today, as he sits on the thick perimeter wall, rubs his eyes, rubs his sore feet, and begins to shut down. Marion tells him that he'll be there. The nasty part is over, and he did well for a civilian. She's seen far worse. He asks if she's seen worse than this, but Marion says nothing. He apologizes, opens his eyes again, and gestures at the mayhem from which they just escaped. The fire door and everything it leads to. It's all still down there. He asks again that she's seen worse than this, and she again says nothing. He asks what this is, and what happened here. At first, Marion doesn't answer this either. She walks away across the roof and spends an entire minute staring at the forthcoming sun. And then, surprising Adam and slightly surprising even herself, she walks back to him and explains that SCP-4051, which is the number they just assigned to this infestation, has an intrinsic property which makes it nearly impossible for sapient organisms to perceive it. It's a form of camouflage. It's not invisible. It's a mental blocking effect. Information about it goes nowhere. It gets suppressed. People walk past this building every day of the week. They don't see what's blocking the windows. They walk past that door and don't realize it's standing open. It could have been here for decades. The researchers will get the whole story eventually. Adam finds in this explanation something he halfway understands, and asks her if they're living Fnords. Editor's note. This is a reference to the Illuminatus trilogy of novels, in which Fnords are words that children are taught to be unable to consciously see, and which instill a feeling of unease and confusion when read. The government uses them to create a perpetual low-level state of fear. This reference actually slows down Marion for a second, as she gets it. She read those books when she was younger, years ago, before joining the Foundation, but she's never made the connection between Fnords and the work she does. For as long as she's been working there, she hasn't even thought about it. The irony is intense enough to burn. She says, yeah, and Adam remarks that she can see them. She says that she has specialist training, declining to mention her drug regimen. Adam then says that he can also see them. Marion explains that he seems to have a mild, natural immunity to memory clouding phenomena. It's rare, but it happens. At a hospital this busy, someone like him was bound to stumble into this place sooner or later. But the point is, this infestation, SCP-4051, is a snowflake. She doesn't mean that it's special and unique. She means that it's part of a blizzard. She works for an independent scientific research institution with a specialist focus on the containment of hazardous anomalous phenomena. They have an international mandate and formidable resources and unimaginable responsibilities. They watch the blizzard, and they guard the little fire. They're called the Foundation. Adam's full attention is on her now. He feels tense and exposed here, vulnerable to extraordinary natural forces from which by rights he should be fleeing. But he's also fascinated. Marion has a faintly ethereal attitude to her. It's as if she's not standing on the same planet as everybody else. He says that she's not FBI then. That was his other guess. Marion wrinkles her nose and replies that she hates that show. Adam mischievously says that he doesn't believe he mentioned a show. A nerve has been touched, though, and Marion shuffles irately. She says that they do everything wrong. They don't have enough people. They don't trust each other. They don't spend nearly enough time on paperwork. Paperwork saves lives. But most of all, she hates the will they or won't they. For 5 years. It's forced. It's farcical. She glares at Adam. It doesn't take that long to know. You will or you won't. And then you do. Adam reads her expression carefully and asks, "You do?" Marion smiles again and says, "Yeah, I think you do." A distant, rapid thudding noise slowly becomes apparent. Marion sees the source of the sound first and points, saying that backup's here. And it looks like they raided a helicopter after all. Our timelines are a little murky here, along with everything else, and it's still unclear on what happened to Marion after the antimemetic bomb. Part of the tale shows how she completely forgot about her husband, Adam Wheeler, but this also seems to have occurred prior to the bomb going off. The addendum from 3125 suggests that Adam found her body, but I don't think we can rule anything out yet. Adam has a natural immunity to some antimemetics, which honestly seems like quite the curse, but the two hit it off pretty quickly during a crisis situation. Despite being together for 17 years, Marion lost all memory of his existence, and what's more, she decided to excise him entirely from her life and from the Foundation, for his own good. She has a war to win, and not an easy one. We'll find out more in the next part.